This was to follow up on what happened with the World Bank disbursement of US dollars 390 million disbursed in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, while I sought that statement on 2nd May, I was informed that I will get a response 2 weeks later. I'm not sure whether Honorable Kiarie is still counting the 2 weeks or he meant 2 years. Honorable Kiarie. So, Mr. Speaker.
Is he here?
He is here.
KJ?
Honorable Speaker, yes. Honorable Speaker, it is true that we had given a commitment for 2 weeks, and the committee has been applying itself on the matter, but save for the disruptions that have been there in terms of workings of our committees, it has taken a bit longer than we expected. Honorable Speaker, in a week and a half, we shall be presenting our report on the statement that had been sought by the honorable member.
Thank you.
It's an assurance that we give.
Next order.
Order number 8, the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 38 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Division of Revenue Act 2024.
Hold on. Honorable members, on the request of the majority leader, I will rearrange the order paper a little so that order number 10 precedes order number 9. So, clerk, call out order number 10. When we are done with order number 10, then we'll come back to order number 9.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023.
Honorable members who are on the screen, if you had logged in to speak to order number 9, you may log out so that we have new interest developing on the new bill, on the motion on the Conflict of Interest Bill. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to move that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now considered. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the standing order number 48.
Leader, hold on a bit. Take your seat. Order, honorable members, I'll take you back to order number 3. Majority Leader, you hold. Those members on their feet, take your seats. Honorable Mudhoni, take the nearest seat. Millie, do the same. Order. Honorable Farah, take the nearest seat. Order. Honorable Mukunji, take the nearest seat. Honorable members, I have a message to convey from His Excellency the President. Honorable members, the message is on the nomination of persons for appointment to offices of cabinet secretaries. Honorable members, Standing Order 42-1 relating to messages from the President provide that the Speaker shall read to the House any message from the President delivered to the Speaker for communication to the House. In this regard, I wish to convey to the House that this afternoon, I have received a further message from His Excellency the President notifying the nomination of various persons to appointment to the offices of Cabinet Secretaries. The names are in addition to the ones I conveyed to the House yesterday. In the message, His Excellency the President conveys that in exercise of powers conferred on him by Articles 152(2) of the Constitution, as read together with Section 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, he nominates various persons for appointment to the aforementioned offices. For clarity, Article 152(2) of the Constitution states, and I quote, "The President shall nominate and with the approval of the National Assembly appoint Cabinet Secretaries." The names of persons submitted to this House for approval for appointment as Cabinet Secretaries are as follows: John Mbandi Ngongo, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, the Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury and Economic Planning. Honorable Salim Mvuriangala Mugala, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. Honorable Rebecca Miano, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. Honorable James Opio Wandai, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Energy and Petroleum. Honorable Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. Honorable Hassan Ali Joho, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Youth, Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. Honorable Dr. Alfred Nganga Mutua, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Labor and Social Protection. Honorable Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Cooperative and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. Honorable Justin Betan Njoka Muturi, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Public Service and Human Capital Development. Honorable Ms. Stella Soy Langat, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage. In view of the foregoing and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, Order Mayaka. In view of the foregoing and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, as read together with the Standing Order 42.3, I hereby refer the message from the President together with the curriculum vitae of the nominees to the Committee on Appointments. Honorable members, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 provides that unless otherwise provided in law, the committee to which such nomination is referred shall consider the matter and table a report in the House within 28 days. It is therefore imperative that the Committee on Appointments consolidates the names contained in the two lists and immediately commence the process of consideration of the nominees. The committee is expected to immediately notify the nominees and the general public, commence the necessary approval hearings and table its report in the House soonest to enable the House to consider the nominees within the stipulated timelines. I thank you. Call out again now order number 10. Number 9.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, allow me to move that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now considered. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 48, allow me to move this motion in an amended form, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill. Honorable Speaker, if you can
Honorable members. Order. Honorable Raphael Wanjala. Recess quietly. Members on their feet, take your seats. Honorable Sirima, you're a senior. You should be the last to interrupt proceedings. Members who wish to walk out of the chamber, do it with order. This bill that is being moved has tremendous consequences on many of the things that this country is doing. And I would expect you to listen to the majority leader, contribute where you can, or vote when the vote is called. It is not fair for you to vote on a bill you have not even listened to.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think members were a bit excited because of the communication you made, especially considering that there are a number of nominees who are members of this House, and it is premature of us to get excited because we are expected to vet these nominees. And I could only take this opportunity to congratulate my good friend, the Honorable Millie Mabona Odhiambo, who I see has taken over a seat, not a position. And any member can sit anywhere, by the way. Therefore, allow me, Honorable Speaker, I was saying, understanding under 48, to allow me to move this motion in an amended form, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interests Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now rejected. Honorable Speaker, under the normal circumstances, such a motion to consider Senate amendments to a bill that originated from the National Assembly would ordinarily be moved by the chairperson of the relevant committee, under whose mandate the bill falls, and in this case, I think it's a JLA committee. And Honorable Speaker, in the present case, I have decided to move this motion as the sponsor of the bill to expedite its consideration owing to the peculiar circumstances of the positions taken by the two houses of the bill, on the bill, Honorable Speaker. And thank you, Honorable Speaker, that you have pointed it out to members that this bill has huge implications on the conduct of business for both public and state officers, and therefore it's important that members pay keen attention to all the amendments that were proposed by the Senate, which were communicated to the House on the 4th of June 2024, and the amendments were committed to the Departmental Committee on JLAC for consideration and reporting to the House. The nature of the amendments received from the Senate has largely informed my decision to move this motion to catalyze its inevitable referral to mediation. Because, Honorable Speaker, as I said, the Senate made amendments that would necessitate us getting into a process of mediation. And however long JLAC team takes, I think the end result will be the same, getting into a mediation committee that can unlock the extremely divergent views of the two houses on the content of the bill, which I will shortly highlight. Honorable Speaker, when I introduced this bill, it sought to repeal the Public Officer Ethics Act of 2003 and establish a framework for managing conflict of interest in the discharge of public duties under the general supervision of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. Currently, Honorable Speaker, the Public Officer Ethics Act establishes various entities as responsible commissions for various state and public officers. For instance, Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Powers and Privileges of the National Assembly is the responsible commission for these members of parliament who are not listening, Honorable Speaker. it is a responsible commission for members of the National Assembly, while the Parliamentary Service Commission is a responsible commission for all parliamentary staff. The bill as published sought to change this by making EACC responsible for all state and public officers. Honorable Speaker, when this House considered the bill, it made various... I shall not repeat because you are asked by the Speaker to pay attention. I have told you, under the Public Officers and Ethics Act, it establishes various commissions that are responsible for the conduct of overseeing the conflict of interest. Under this act, the Powers and Privileges Committee of the National Assembly is the responsible commission under the act for members of parliament, while the Parliamentary Service Commission is the responsible commission for members of staff. And I further said that the bill, as published, sought to change this by making EACC the responsible commission for all state and public officers. I further told you that when this House considered the bill, and we did all consider in second reading and the committee of the whole, we made various amendments which sought to do a number of things, including one, maintaining the existing model of wealth declarations to entities that directly supervise the conduct and ethics of the various categories of public officers. In this regard, the House agreed to repeal the Public Officer Ethics Act and insisted on transferring specific provisions from the Act to the bill. Two, we align the bill with the responsibilities of members of Parliament, and this is important, members, that when in Committee of the Whole we considered amendments, we aligned the bill to your responsibilities as members of Parliament on declaration of conflict of interest in parliamentary debate under the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act of 2017. You remember the bill, as was published, was creating a conflict of interest even on matters that pertain to your work as a member of Parliament. And we sought to make those amendments during the Committee of the Whole. Three, we expanded the declarations to include previous categories of public and state officers that were not expressly provided for under the Public Officer and Ethics Act, for instance, that of the Chief Justice and Cabinet Secretaries. Four, we limited the definition of the word relative. Those who are here during second reading, you will all recall the very broad definition of the word relative in the conduct of affairs of a state or public officer, and we limited this definition to the affairs of a state or public officer and his or her dependent children. And we also, in 5, prohibited, not only prohibiting public officers from contracting with public bodies in which they are employed. You will recall the bill as published prohibited public and state officers and their broad definition of relatives from conducting business with any entity of government. Conversely, Honorable Speaker, from the message received from the Senate has reversed everything that this House passed. The Senate has deleted and proposed repeal of the Public Officer Ethics Act. This has resulted in the proposed repeal of clauses including those on functions of the Commission, participation of members in proceedings before Parliament or county assemblies. Therefore, there is debate you cannot interact with as a member of Parliament or as a member of county assemblies on the basis of what the Senate has done. Acquisition of interest in partnerships and private companies, restricted gainful employment, for instance, people who are here and are lawyers, professional accountants, etc. The register of conflict of interest, where this register will be. Prohibitions on state officers after leaving office, having served as a state officer, what other gainful employment can you get into? And we had made amendments relating to that. The prohibition against representing people before reporting entities and declaration of income, assets, and liabilities by public officers. Honorable Speaker, additionally, the Senate has deleted the EACC as administrator of the bill and deleted all provisions on conflicts of interest in the Public Officer Ethics Act, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and the Senate amendments are the complete opposite of what the National Assembly considered and passed in the bill. I therefore move that the Honorable Speaker, I've just given the background of what we had done in this bill and what the Senate has proposed to do in the amendments that I'm calling on the House to reject. Because what the amendments that the Senate has passed, besides negating everything that we did to make this bill become workable, what the Senate has done, and without casting aspersions on the other House, Honorable Speaker, must be informed by a huge conflict of interest in the other House. Because, Honorable Speaker, you appreciate this is a House that has been unable to impeach even a single governor. And I saw them the other day pontificating on issues to do with integrity and corruption in this country, Honorable Speaker. But, Honorable Speaker, and you know, we have restrained ourselves over the last 2 years from discussing the other House or even the conduct of members of that House, even under extreme provocation. But, Honorable Speaker, we must stand with the people of Kenya. This bill is critical in the fight against corruption. The dilution that the other House, Senate, has visited on this bill makes this bill completely unworkable. It creates a very fertile ground for corruption and conflict of interest to continue taking root in our republic, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, we must be the bigger brother between the two houses. We must be the House that stands with the people of Kenya who have spoken loudly and told us that matters touching on conflict of interest, matters touching on theft of public resources must come to an end. We must be that House, Honorable Speaker, that today will stand with the people of Kenya and tell our brothers in the Senate that it will not be business as usual for governors to steal and get away scot-free with what they have stolen from the people of Kenya, knowing that because of conflict of interest, they can influence what will happen in the other House and their county assemblies. We must be that House. Honorable Speaker, this House has a singular responsibility of being the people's representatives, while the other House represents counties. Being the people's representatives, Honorable Speaker, we must be the ones to stand today with the people of Kenya. And I think, Honorable Speaker, listening to what Kenyans are saying out there, and I have seen this being one of the bills that even the young Kenyans in our country and other Kenyans of goodwill who want a change in the manner things are done in this country have asked the Houses of Parliament to expedite with, is this bill. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have a national duty to reject these amendments, get into mediation, and show our brothers and sisters in the other House that it is only right to do what is good for the greater good of our people, not what is good for leaders and public officers who hold office. Honorable Speaker, this bill, and I have heard in today's communication from the President, he has also alluded to it, is an important bill not just for us as public and state officers, even to protect ourselves as state officers against accusations, unfair accusations of engaging in corruption or corrupt activities, but also in protecting the assets of the Kenyan people against public and state officers, Honorable Speaker, and even people in the private sector, Honorable Speaker. This bill was misconstrued in the other House to be speaking to just public and state officers. The conduct of corrupt activities in this country, Honorable Speaker, is also largely driven by the private sector. This conflict of interest bill speaks also to conflict of interest by the private sector. 1 minute. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was saying, for instance, if you look at the lot and the looting that has pervaded in the old NHIF, the National Health Insurance Fund, it has not come out of conflict of interest by particularly state officers. Private entities have engaged in massive looting and corruption in NHIF. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, when you run a private hospital and you engage with a public entity, it is only a law like this that will protect the assets of the Kenyan people. And I want to beg this House, as I move and call on the Vice Chair of the Jailer Committee, the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, to second, I want to call on this House to reject in total all the amendments by the Senate to protect the people of Kenya from conflict of interest, corruption, and wanton looting of their assets and resources. I beg to move and ask Honorable Mutuse to second.
Mutuse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to second the motion that has been ably moved by our majority leader, that the Senate amendments to the conflict of interest bill that was considered by my committee, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, that have been referred to this House by the Senate be rejected. Mr. Speaker, the amendments that have been referred by the Senate are very retrogressive. They are in themselves going to undermine very directly the war on corruption. They are in themselves making the conflict of interest bill an empty shell of its former objectives. Mr. Speaker, all of us in this House agree that the reason why we have wanton corruption in the national government and in the county governments is because those who are in leadership are able to do and transact with the offices that they also superintend. And the bill intends to remove conflict of interest so that government entities are not corrupted by people who have been appointed or elected into office. The Senate has made amendments that make it possible, for example, for a permanent secretary to own a company and do business in a state department that the permanent secretary is an accounting officer. This House must stand and say that this cannot be allowed. Out there, Kenyans are saying that we are able to fund our own development, that we may not even be able to need to increase taxes if we are able to take care of corruption and take care of wastage. What the Senate is doing through the amendments is to legalize corruption, is to make it possible for a member of parliament, for example, to be able to transact with the Parliamentary Service Commission, which in itself is even rejected under our own parliamentary privileges and standing orders. So, Mr. Speaker, as I second this motion, I urge the House to reject the Senate amendments and that the bill be referred under Article 113 for mediation so that we do not undermine the war on corruption and that we take into effect the voice of Kenyans. And therefore, I second and urge that we reject the Senate amendments and refer the bill for mediation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and urge the House to do as required through the powers conferred on the Speaker under Article 113 to appoint a mediation committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023 be now considered. And remember that the majority leader moved it in an amended form. So, Dindi Nyoro, are you here on budget? No contributors? Yes. Wangari? Wangari wants to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the majority leader on this bill. And Mr. Speaker, I think the most saddening thing with the amendments done by the Senate is that it takes us very far back in the war of corruption. Mr. Speaker, the issues we have been dealing with for the last 1 month or so generated by Kenyans, by Gen Zs, by civil society, Mr. Speaker, most of them could be sorted if we dealt with corruption. Because, Mr. Speaker, every year we have had issues of pilferages of money, both at the national level and at the county level. So, Mr. Speaker, anything that would jeopardize that fight should be rejected, and we should actually support this bill and the way we had passed it, Mr. Speaker. And we shall reject the amendments of the Senate and go with what we had passed as the National Assembly, because they called us sitting, the Senate called us sitting, and I'm avoiding to delve into casting aspersions to the Senate, but I think the Senate has lost the track of what they should be doing. Because, Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest issues we have is that we have so much money going to the counties, but we don't see the value of it. We don't see governors being held accountable. In other words, Mr. Speaker, what we have seen is the Senate being obsessed. And I say that because I've been a former senator, Mr. Speaker, that they forget their major and main mandate of protecting the counties, Mr. Speaker. What we have seen is that we have actually be calling the governors and the CECs from the counties to show accountability, because the mandate of oversight of government in the national level is vested in this House, Mr. Speaker. We must actually, Mr. Speaker, have the conversation of whether a CS should appear before the Senate or it should be a governor and the CECs, Mr. Speaker, because we have now our CSs giving excuses that they are not able to come to this National Assembly because either in the morning they were in the Senate or in the afternoon they were in the Senate. It has become a matter of duplication, Mr. Speaker, and we should be able to deal with it at some point. But on this bill, Mr. Speaker, even the President, as he made this address that he made earlier, Mr. Speaker, he alluded to this issue, because if we do not deal with matter governance, with matter corruption, then we'll have done nothing, Mr. Speaker. So I hope that we'll do justice, and the members that will be chosen under Article 113 on mediation can be able to do justice to this bill, so that we can be able to properly deal with corruption. Because you cannot say you're taking from this hand and the right hand is hidden behind, Mr. Speaker. So I actually support the majority leader, and that we should reject the amendments done by the Senate and this bill to proceed as it was, Mr. Speaker, so that we are able to deal properly with the issues that have been raised for the last few weeks. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. When we enacted the new constitution under Chapter 6, we were very careful. We knew absolute power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's why Chapter 6 of Integrity and Leadership was inserted in the Constitution. We proceeded to prepare an Act of Parliament that made a mockery of Chapter 6. We proceeded to have various anti-corruption laws that do not seem to be biting, because outside the Honorable Speaker, many Kenyans believe it's the elected leaders, it's the political class that the purveyors of corruption in this country. Honorable Speaker, we as Parliament, and that includes National Assembly and Senate, if we can water down the bill that we passed here to make it practically impossible to hold accountable elected leaders, then, Honorable Speaker, we are taking this country into abyss. And that's why I support, as moved by the majority leader, that what Senate did was a great disservice for this country. And, Honorable Speaker, I think Senate is suffering from inferiority complex. Senate thinks that members of Parliament here, National Assembly, have got so much money that they're wallowing in a lot of money. And that's why they go to the pettiness to come and see how many cars are in the parking slot of the National Assembly. How many new cars or how many new tires members of Parliament have bought. They have this misconception, even those who have been here, Honorable Speaker, that members of Parliament use CDF to fund their personal lifestyle. Honorable Speaker, we cannot afford to allow conflict of interest not to be called out. Honorable Speaker, where we are in a position of influence. So if we allow ourselves to also start doing business with our own entity, it means, therefore, Honorable Speaker, no other Kenyan will ever get a contract, will ever get any job in this country unless you know somebody. We must win ourselves this mentality that you must know somebody for you to get employed, that you must be connected to you for get a tender, that you must bribe for you to be paid for any work you have done anywhere. Honorable Speaker, I want to urge those who will be appointed to go to mediation committee. I want to urge, because at times have been some of them, senators can bully ordinary members to accept their way. Here we go with the irreducible minimum. The irreducible minimum is the bill that we passed in this House. Any other story, Honorable Speaker, we will expose them and surrender them to Gen Z to deal with them accordingly. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support the motion by the Majority Leader.
Member for Gishugu. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support the motion as moved by the Leader of Majority. And Honorable Speaker, the principle of conflict of interest has been there for many, many years. And it has been loosely been used under the tenets of natural justice. And this issue has been left by the courts to determine whether there is conflict of interest or not. But now here comes a law that is very explicit to explain matters of conflict of interest. And this House, Mr. Speaker, will not allow Senate to stand on the way of Kenyans in fight of corruption, because that is what they want us to, they want to take us back to. And we have to stand as a House and support the government, which is now committed towards fighting corruption. And the executive, through the president, has already pronounced itself that this is a government that is willing to fight corruption. And therefore, Senate should not come on the way of the will of the Kenyans to fight corruption. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, without belaboring the point, I support the motion as moved and will reject in totality the proposals that have been made by the Senate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
KJ.
Mr. Speaker, I do stand up to support the report as presented and amended by the Leader of Majority, and also to object to the changes that have been put in by the Senate. Honorable Speaker, right from the onset, I'd like to say that this bill in itself was a great opportunity for this House to start addressing some of the matters that are being conversed, even by the young people who are calling themselves Gen Zs. The issue of conflict of interest in the management of affairs of government is a thorn in the flesh to this country. So, Mr. Speaker, where this House was seeking to remedy some of these maladies, it looks like Senate is keen on taking us back to a place where we are not able to counter the issue of conflict of interest. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I do object. Mr. Speaker, the issues that are being canvassed in the country today are calling us to order. It is at a point like this when we ought to ask ourselves as a republic, issues of conflict of interest aside, even the constitution of this country, Mr. Speaker, is now ready for an audit. This constitution has been with us for a good 15 years. It is at this point that we should ask ourselves, how has this constitution served us in the last 15 years? And when we audit the constitution, we shall put Senate on the spot. We shall ask ourselves, in its composition as it is right now, Mr. Speaker, is the Senate serving Kenya right? And to my mind, there are some amendments in the Constitution that would occasion for us to relook at how Senate is constituted. As it is, Mr. Speaker, Senate is required to be attending to the matters of counties, Mr. Speaker. And even as the Gen Zs are calling out the rot in the national government, we know that there are even bigger problems in the counties, Mr. Speaker. And if Senate was true to its roles, Senate would have already gone into these county governments and checked on the rot that is happening in the executives of counties, Mr. Speaker. The rot and the conflict of interest that is happening in the business that is being conducted in counties. So, Mr. Speaker, I do object vehemently, and I say that even as we are looking at these matters of conflict of interest, it is the right time that this country had a conversation with itself on how the Constitution has served us for the last 15 years. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I do believe that if we look at how Senate is composed, we as a country might decide to borrow a leaf from jurisdictions like that of the UK, where the House of Commons has its job laid out for itself. But the House of Senate in the UK, Mr. Speaker, and you would be one to tell us, is a house that is reserved for very esteemed people and citizens, Mr. Speaker. That if we were to recompose our Senate, we might decide that we shall reserve the Senate for those Kenyans who have served so diligently in very specific areas, and they would be the people that we would be nominating to Senate, so that it is a proper nyumba la wazee, which advises the country on very topical and very technical issues from a point of information. As it is right now, the Senate does find itself at times with no business to prosecute other than to meddle with the work that is being done by the National Assembly. And as such, they use their time to do what we have seen this afternoon. So, Mr. Speaker, I object the amendments made by Senate, and I do support the report as presented and as amended and presented by the Leader of Majority. I do support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Those who are on the screen, like Ndindi Nyoro, Johanna Ngeno, John Gitonga, you are all for appropriations. Now the mover should be called upon to reply. Majority Leader, you may now reply.
Inspecting and monitoring and evaluating all the projects which are done in the country, Mr. Speaker. But most importantly, remember the rain that ravaged the country, Mr. Speaker, carried so many food breaches which had been done to allow students cross over to the other areas, to allow even women who are crossing to the other areas for markets, carrying their products. Mr. Speaker, we had, or the State Department had requested for the construction of the food bridges to allow these crossovers. But, Mr. Speaker, due to the fall of the finance bill, Mr. Speaker, the whole budget which was allocating these particular activities was completely downed. Mr. Speaker, the budget also has has given breadth to the employment permanently of the GSS teachers. Remember, Mr. Speaker, we still have a very big and a huge challenge on the issue of GSS, on the issue of our classrooms. Mr. Speaker, this CBC was introduced without considering so many factors. Now it is a baby that we have to nurture. It is something that we have to deal with. It is a matter that we cannot throw it out of the window, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, when this budget was cut, the President looked into whether we are going to throw out the GSS teachers, because that was a very big challenge. But in his wisdom and the wisdom of the Budget Committee, they have managed to allocate good funds to ensure that we have all these GSS teachers employed and be placed under permanent employment. Mr. Speaker, remember this is a very vital area. We also ensure that the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, is considered. And this is a very vital thing, which of course will also give our teachers our teachers comfort, because you know, Mr. Speaker, the foundation of this country is based on education, and just like what somebody said, or a very great person one day said, and education is an equalizer. It is a factor that equalizes all the rich and the poor. They put them in the same pool, Mr. Speaker. So this budget is considering majorly and putting into serious consideration on matters of education, because that is one area that we consider as very fundamental. Mr. Speaker, we know even the roads, we know the electricity, the energy, the Ministry of Energy, most of the issues were cut. But Mr. Speaker, most importantly, now that from the mood of the communication you just sent to this House, Mr. Speaker, you read to this House, Mr. Speaker, where most of the nominees to the cabinet are now from the opposition side, Mr. Speaker. I hope, I hope it is now going to bring harmony in this House and especially in the country, so that whatever business we are going to be transacting in this House will sail through. And I'm taking this opportunity to welcome members of the opposition now that they are part of government to help this country to stabilize. And I know the reason why we had that particular move, Mr. Speaker, is to allow this country to have stability, allow this country to move forward, allow this country to focus, allow this country to actually ensure that all the issues, all the projects which have been slated are properly delivered and done. And even as we are passing this supplementary budget one, Mr. Speaker, I wish, as a word of caution, Mr. Speaker, we have seen, even in our committees when we were trying to pass some of the proposals by the State Departments, we wanted to ensure that most of the monies, because, Mr. Speaker, where we are collecting this money, the people of the Republic who we are taxing to get this money are going through a lot of pain. So our major request and demand by this House, Mr. Speaker, is that any money allocated for majorly projects, Mr. Speaker, should be utilized on projects, and especially projects, Mr. Speaker, which bring development to our people and to the people of this Republic. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to say that we will, as much as possible, try to cut some of the expenditures, but most importantly, Mr. Speaker, the cuts which have been placed on development areas, Mr. Speaker, the little that has remained must be properly utilized. And now that we are having almost a new cabinet, though some of them are the same old faces, but we are having almost a new cabinet. We want to ask the members of the cabinet who are coming in, where especially if they were to be passed or vetted and passed in this House, Mr. Speaker, that it is time to work for this country. It is no time to work for yourself. This is no time to reap. This is no time to steal. This is no time to waste. These are monies which we collect painfully from the people of this Republic. So even as we are going to vet these particular cabinet secretaries whose names have been forwarded to this House, Mr. Speaker, our core mandate as this House is to ensure that we vet and pass members of the cabinet who we know their background has nothing to do with corruption. And if they pass that test, Mr. Speaker, we hope they are going to deliver to this nation. They are going to build this nation. They are going to work hard, just like what the president is trying to do, so that we don't look back and say, these are the people who failed this country. So each one of us has a responsibility. As a House, we have the responsibility. As a cabinet, they have the responsibility. As the president also has the responsibility to ensure that whatever money we appropriate in this House, Mr. Speaker, whatever money we tax the people of this country, Mr. Speaker, and put in the budget must be properly utilized without corruption, without stealing. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Nairobi Women Rep. Oh, you are not ready. Oh, Rosa Buyu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, in supporting the supplementary that we've just had, I would like to thank the Gen Zs for giving us the opportunity to relook at that budget. Mr. Speaker, I actually support, because when you look at what has been presented now, there's a lot of austerity measures that's been put in place, which means that money is going to go to good use. Mr. Speaker, however, I would like to say that there's still opportunity to better that budget, by looking at duplication in different ministries. Mr. Speaker, when that is realigned, I'm sure the budget will even be lower. But Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, as a woman who has been on the forefront in the women's movement, I want to take this opportunity as a key member of ODM and Azimio. I want to take this opportunity to announce the new leader of minority, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo Mabona. Mr. Speaker, nobody should tell me that I have no authority to do that. I've been in ODM since its inception from 2005. And I've seen women be so loyal to this party called ODM. I've seen women be on the forefront of Azimio. And it is time that a woman is given an opportunity to lead this party in the House. Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking of a woman who's distinguished in terms of her contribution.
Yes, order. There's a point of order. Yes, Kamket. What's your point of order? Yes, Kamket.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I'm standing on standing order number 91, and also on relevance, and also, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is is anticipating debate, because there is no motion in this House, Mr. Speaker, about any appointment. There is no motion on this floor about any appointment of anyone to anywhere. And from the experience, Mr. Speaker, from our own experience yesterday, we now know that what is announced outside,
what is your point of order?
There, on two matters. Is she in order, Mr. Speaker, for the honorable lady to anticipate debate? And two, is she relevant in what she's saying? Is what she's saying relevant to the debate on supplementary?
Continue.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not preempting any debate. I'm not talking about any cabinet minister, but I'm talking about a seat that seems to be vacant, and I'm talking about a distinguished member of this National Assembly. I'm talking about a woman who is having her 4th term, and a woman who's distinguished in debates in this House. I'm talking about a distinguished lawyer, and I'm talking about a distinguished human rights defender. And I'm saying it is time for Millie Odhiambo Mabona to take the leadership of minority. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable lady members. I know you are operating within the exuberance of feminism, but your wailing in the House is out of order. Next, we have John Gitonga. Is he here? You know, some of you key in and then leave. Is he here? No. Kiarie?
Mr. Speaker, it's a great honor to be contributing to this motion on supplementary budget. And as I speak chairing the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation. And Mr. Speaker, yes, we have been given an opportunity to look at the budget. We in the sector are actually running into a big problem, even with the budget cuts that are happening. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the trend of how the cuts were done at Treasury, they were targeted on certain issues. In the attempt to implement austerity measures, the area of communication is greatly affected across board. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, there are ministries and departments and agencies in these governments whose sole responsibility is communication, Mr. Speaker. For example, there is the Department of Broadcast and Telecommunication. In the blanket cuts, this department has been left with a situation where we might go for an entire year where they are only able to pay salaries but not conduct any developmental issue, being that their core business is communication, in such a way that if blanket cuts are done across board, affecting communication, their core business is greatly affected. Mr. Speaker, I do support the supplementary budget as we have done. However, Mr. Speaker, it must be said in this parliament that Treasury ought to change its budgeting regime and the way that it does budgeting. Mr. Speaker, Treasury in this country has budgeted for ministries and departments in the same way as it has since 1963, so that sectors that have traditionally enjoyed big budgets continue to enjoy inordinately bigger budgets. The traditional sectors that are capital intensive, that are infrastructure intensive, have continually enjoyed big budgets, budgets that probably are even budgeted for corruption, Mr. Speaker. Emergent sectors, Mr. Speaker, like the sector of telecommunication, the sector of innovation, the sector of information, some of which were small departments in traditional bigger sectors. For example, the sector of ICT and digital economy was traditionally a small department within energy. In Treasury, to their mind, ICT and digital economy still remains in their mind a small department within energy. But if you look at the bottom-up economic transformational agenda, if you look at Marshall plans like the Kenya digital superhighway program, if you look at Vision 2030, emerging sectors like ICT and the digital economy might be the place where we find a solution for the issues that are being canvassed, even the issues that are being canvassed by the Gen Z on the streets. They are talking about youth engagement. They are talking about employment. This employment will not come from the bigger sectors. It will not come from corporate Kenya. These youth will be meaningfully engaged if members in this house are able to institute digital innovation hubs in each and every ward of this country. It will happen when we are able to make connectivity, get to places like Wajir and Mandera and the other far-flung places in this country. These opportunities will be available when our young people are able to get digital online jobs, where they are able to go to a digital innovation hub in their village and they are able to be paid in dollars. But Mr. Speaker, that is the case we find ourselves in, where Treasury is still budgeting in the way they used to budget in the 60s. Mr. Speaker, our sector in the ICT and digital economy has proven that if you invest 1 shilling, you're going to reap 5 shillings out of that investment. So what we are decrying here, Mr. Speaker, I do stand up as a village crier, saying that even as we prosecute these budgets, Parliament will have to apply itself better so that we can remedy the ills that are coming from Treasury, which are traditionally budgeting in a way that does not benefit us and does not drive us in the way of solving some of the problems that the young people are telling us. So, Mr. Speaker, I do support the consideration of this first supplementary budget, and I do laud the members of the Digital Economy Committee, up to and including the Honorable Dr. Bensouda, who I see here, because they applied themselves well in this supplementary budget to be able to remedy some of those ills that we picked out that were occasioned by the way that Treasury is budgeting for this country. And I want to laud these members of our ICT committee and remind you that in the absence of a committee of the future in this jurisdiction, the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation is actually the committee of the future. And we shall take our rightful place as Parliament so that we budget as is required by the Constitution, where budgeting happens on this floor in this House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do support.
Zamzam, you are on the... Oh, is that... Who is the member at the end? Mwalio. Honorable Mwalio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to stand to support the supplementary one estimates and be able to hear some grievances that the supplementary budget has created. In this supplementary, then the cuts that we have been able to cut, we have been able to remove entirely majority of the development funds in many sectors and also the ministries. And what we are doing by so doing is that we are taking people out of business and also creating unemployment. Because if there is no development, it means that the contractors that have been able to be given some contracting, they have been able to win some tenders, and they have been able to do some works. They are going to have pending bills, and also they are going to lay down the workers that have been employed and engaged in those contracts. Therefore, it is very important to think out of the box, to be able to at least to keep some little money in a development instead of removing all the 100% development funds, because it is going to take people to the streets without any employment. If you see the building sector, whereby the contractors normally engage with the government, because the government is the biggest employer of all the contractors, then those workers are going to be left with any job because there is nothing for development for this year. Number two, in our Committee of Trade, Industry, and the Cooperatives, we had checked whereby we can take out money and put whereby we can create some employment in some EPZ, SEZ, in the river tax, in the new KCC, whereby we were creating some jobs for the Kenyans. Because the Gen Zs are crying because there is no employment. So let us think to be able to be conscious to create some employment so that we can accommodate some of our young people that are in the streets every day. So we will be able to maybe to make some amendments in the third reading so that we can be able to create some room even for some people to create some employment somewhere so that these young people can be engaged in some of the developments that are going on. We were told that in the EPZ, they are all lined up of investors who are coming up to invest in those sheds. And those sheds, the money has been removed. So we will not be able to create any employment, and also the investors will find there is nothing, no infrastructure that has been done for them to be able to engage in a meaningful manufacturing, in a meaningful engagement with the government. So let us think twice as we remove and we make the future budgets so that our goal should be more so by creating employment. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to give my opinion on the debate concerning the budget estimates that have been tabled. And I want to, first of all, thank the young people of Kenya, because it is because of them that they have given us an opportunity to review these budget estimates and relook at areas where we can be able to reduce our expenditure and plan our money economy in a better way. Mr. Speaker, whereas I support the intentional move by the Budget Committee to allocate more funds in areas where the young people of Kenya may benefit through jobs creation, and more specifically, when I talk about job creation, I'm talking about the value addition areas and processing that has been given more attention and allocated more money The school feeding program that has been able to be given 3 billion shillings. That is a positive move, Mr. Speaker. The intentional move to add more resources to TVETs and Kenya medical training colleges so that we can accommodate more of our young people into the training. And the intentional move to add more money in value addition projects like the ultra-modern fish processing plant in Liwatoni, and many other value addition ventures that has received a positive increment on money allocation. Mr. Speaker, whereas I appreciate that the young people of Kenya have been given an opportunity to get more busy with such ventures in value addition, I'm quite concerned because the current president, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, when he was a deputy president, has pledged many times that he's going to provide milk coolers to most of our farmers in our villages, Githongori constituency being one. Mr. Speaker, his promises has never been fulfilled. And we do understand it is because maybe there was limitation on funding. So the fact that this proposal has allocated more money into buying of milk coolers in this country to a tune of 2 billion is a positive move for me. Not because the farmers did not have the coolers, but because more coolers will create more opportunities for our farmers and across the value chain to create jobs even for the young people. But Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the chairman of the budget committee is in the House. And I would want to have some clarification why the money that was allocated for coffee cherry fund has been reduced with 1 billion shillings. This is something that I have been raising since the beginning of this year. We were promised that we are going to get 4 billion shillings for cherry fund. Later on, we were promised that our farmers, the coffee farmers, are going to be given 6 billion shillings to clear our debts. But according to the document that I have, Madam Speaker, vote number 1173 says that the Ministry of Cooperative and Development Management is going to lose 1 billion shillings recurrent fund from coffee cherry fund. Mr. Speaker, I would want a clarification on why coffee cherry fund is being reduced from whatever was allocated initially to losing 1 billion shillings. Is it that our farmers have not absorbed the money? Is it that they have realized that our farmers have had enough of cherry fund? Now they have to reduce to 1 billion, from 2 billion shillings to 1 billion? Or what is this that has informed the budget committee to reduce cherry fund to this level? Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I am a farmer. Sorry. I am a farmer, and I can tell you that not all farmers have received cherry fund as we speak. Some of the farmers requested for 80 shillings per kilo of cherry fund. They only received 20 shillings. There are some factories, as we speak, who requested for cherry fund and have never received this money. So when we come now and revise the budget and reduce this money, in the excuse of that we are adding more coolers, does it mean that milk farmers who are receiving coolers are more important than coffee farmers? This is a question that I would want to get answer from the relevant committee, because it is not right for us to be playing public relations with our farmers. It is not right for us to be promising our farmers something on television, but when it comes to actual figures, we play around with figures. So I will not support this until I'm clear why coffee farmers are getting a reduction. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Chair Budget, you'll note the concerns of members. You can respond to them during reply. Dr. Ochanda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the motion on the basis of the timing, in terms of the time when it is falling in. Madam Speaker, this appropriation is coming in at a time when precedents have been created. We have basically created precedents in this country. A precedent, and number one, that a finance bill has been rejected nearly as the first time in the history of this country. Number two, we are doing this against a backdrop that members were very elated about the appropriation that we had done last before we did the finance bill, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I look through this supplementary appropriations, my view is that if we had time, where we are not able to get the 400 billion shillings, Madam Speaker, if we had time, I believe we are able to get this money. Number one is the amount of what is appearing as vote and programs that are placed in different departments but are getting monies differently. If we went ahead, particularly to synchronize in terms of, for example, if you look at the Department of Immigration, there are things that are talking about population services. Population services are in immigration. Then we also have issues to do with population in planning. I want to believe that if these things were merged and were looked at as one, we would have saved quite a bit of money here. The same goes to where we are having Department of Irrigation, we are having Department of Water. I think these are areas where if we looked at thoroughly, there are areas where we can make savings. But beyond that, Madam Speaker, since all this began, the head of state has indicated scrapping of more than 40 parastatals. These parastatals are already still here in the supplementaries with allocations through the departments that they fall. So, Madam Speaker, if we looked through this, if we had time, and I think this is exactly what the Budget and Appropriation Committee needs to look at, the issue of cleaning duplications and the issue of costing and marrying together the monies that were supposed to be going to the parastatals that are being scrapped, then if we put them together, Madam Speaker, I believe we are able to get the 400 billion that we are looking for by cutting some of these areas in terms of the budgets that were necessary. The other thing is the whole issue of pilferage. If we are able to get to close all avenues of pilferage, all avenues where we are getting issues of corruption, particularly today the President has pronounced himself the issue of procurement. I think if we closed all these avenues, Madam Speaker, I believe and I strongly believe that we are able to get the 400 billion shillings that are making us get to this arrangement where there's no money for development, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Member for Manyata, Honorable John Gitonga, are you on this one? If not, I'll give to member for Sirisia. If not there, I'll give the member for Tetu, Honorable Geoffrey Mwangi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute and support this supplementary budget. Madam Speaker, we are in a very, very interesting time as a country because for the first time, matters economy, matters governance are taking center stage in this country, something that we have not had in a long, long time. And it is good that we are relooking at our expenditure. It is good that we are relooking at how we raise funds. It is good that we are looking at how we finance the governance of this country. Madam Speaker, I would like to start by calling out a Treasury. Because, Madam Speaker, partly some of the problems that we have found ourselves in may have been the lack of thoroughness that we have exhibited in how we have prepared the different financial documents, be they budget or be they appropriation. And Madam Speaker, it is important, without preempting debate on the individuals who have been selected to take charge of Treasury, to say that it is important that we get the best brains at Treasury. So that some of the challenges that we have gone on with the documents that have been rejected by the public and have put us in the spot as members of this House, at least we can be able to perform much, much better in future in terms of our budget and appropriations preparation. Madam Speaker, having said that, even as we try to exercise different austerity measures, even as we try to juggle with the minimal resources that we have and move them around to be able to satisfy the different needs in our country, it is important, Madam Speaker, that we continue and maybe even up the ante on the war on corruption and the war on wastage. Because, Madam Speaker, sometimes we talk about austerity. Then we realize the only austerity we achieved is by cutting important programs or reducing funding to important programs. But the money that gets lost through wastage, the money that gets lost through corruption remains the same. And as some of the people who have said here, we not only need to look at the national government, but we also need to look further down into the county government. Because if we do not win the war on corruption, we will continue talking about austerity. We will continue talking about not raising enough resources for a long, long time, without achieving whatever, any meaningful progress. Madam Speaker, it is important that we also create a lean government, a government that is small enough to meet the needs of the people, but also big enough to execute the mandate that it has been given. I personally believe, Madam Speaker, that the government has no business being in business. And that is why when the president calls out and says that there are some parastatals who would like merged or who would like wound up, that is something that I support. In this country, Madam Speaker, we have over 350 plus parastatals. Some of them have duplicated functions. Others can barely even survive without getting the annual budgetary support that they get from Treasury. Madam Speaker, we have to say what is important. What is the work of a government? It is to provide education. It is to provide things like health services. It is to provide things like security and the rest. When the government is in the business of, milling machines, the government is in the business of, milling cotton and things like that. Those are things that can be best done, and they've done even better by the private sector. And Madam Speaker, if you look at this country, you can tell me any service that is offered by the government, especially those parastatals, which does not have a problem. When it comes to power, we have issues of reliability, we have issues of adequacy, and we have very many other issues. When the services offered by the private sector, in a lot of instances, move so much better and are even cheaper. So it is time that we started looking at what is the core mandate of the government and ensure that only those functions are supported. But even as we work on this budget, and to support my chairman of the ICT committee, we must look into the future. We have continued putting a lot of money in the traditional brick and mortar economy, and we have forgotten to be futuristic. If you go to the United Arab Emirates, they have a minister for AI. They are thinking about futuristic things of where the world is going. We still have, and rightly so, an obsession with roads, an obsession with water, and those are all good things. But as we fix the past, we must also continue talking about the future. How much money are we allocating in research? How much money are we allocating in AI? How are we helping to build a futuristic government even as we take care of the past? So, Madam Speaker, I rise to support the supplementary budget, but I request that the chairman of the budget committee and his people at Treasury continue to do a budget that is purposeful, that is helpful for this country going forward. I rise to support, Madam Speaker, with those comments. Thank you.
Chair at National Administration, Honorable Tongo.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity also to add my voice into this very important debate. Madam Speaker, from the very onset, I want really to appreciate and commend the Budget Committee led by their very able chair for burning the midnight oil to have this report ready. In fact, Madam Speaker, about last night, I was trying to call the chair, and he told me he went to bed around 4 a.m. And at the same breath, Madam Speaker, also want to commend all chairs, departmental chairs, who actually also participated in making this possible. Madam Speaker, it is good to appreciate that we are doing this supplementary budget during a very hard moment, because it was actually primarily cuts resulting or occasioned by the stepping down or suspension of the Finance Bill 2024, which has really caused a lot of cuts across the all sectors, which we have got no option. We had just to accept as it is. But having said this, Madam Speaker, I want really to appreciate that the Budget Committee had really tried and really try to save and preserve the very critical and important program that are so beneficial to Kenyans. And just to mention a few, Madam Speaker, under the supplementary budget, there's still provision of money to absorb our GSS, which is a very positive step forward. We know majority of our youth are having a problem of unemployment, and absorbing the GSS will actually be a promise that the Kenya Kwanza government will be fulfilling. Madam Speaker, in the same budget, there is an increment for our police officers and the prisons, warders, and it's actually across all the security sector. It is actually, Madam Speaker, you remember, we all have to appreciate the Maraga Task Force report recommended a 40% increase of salaries to our police officers. And even the president has committed so, and in this budget, the same money has been provided, a tune of 3.5 billion has been provided to enable our police officers get their salary increment starting this month, as promised by the president. Madam Speaker, and I know we are still going to look at other sectors, like, of course, the welfare, the housing program, so that our police officers' welfare is going to be better. Madam Speaker, the issue like milk coolers is a very important sector, especially actually from the pastoralist community where we come from. Normally we say the cow belongs to the man, but milk belongs to the mothers. And the provision of milk coolers in the budget is a very critical component that is going to ensure that the livelihood of our farmers and our mothers is going to be uplifted. Madam Speaker, it's also an important that, of course, the issue of CDF has been enhanced to enable these members, to enable enhance their bursaries, to ensure that no kids in Kenya get their bursaries. Madam Speaker, I want to speak on the issue of the lease vehicle. In the same budget, Madam Speaker, there is a provision of slightly less than 10 billion money that is going to enable us to able to re-embark into the program of the lease vehicle, to enable our security agents, our Ngawa officers, to enable to get the very important kits of tools of service so that they can able to give service to Kenyans more effectively and efficiently. And especially even to mention those who are undertaking security operation in the North Rift and in northern part of Kenya. Madam Speaker, in the same budget, we noted, of course, that there is the money for the public participation has been ring-fenced and protected so that the members who crisscross the entire country, taking the views of Kenyans, will be able to have this project provided to give the needed services. But having said this, Madam Speaker, and I hope the chair budget is listening to this, in the police sector, we had anticipated to have a lot of raft of reform and to enable our police officers to perform their duties and provide the tool of service. But in the development...
Chair budget, that Kamukunji has gone on too long. Honorable Tongo is addressing a matter to you so that you can be able to respond, especially the chairs of departmental committees.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Chair budget, I was mentioning that having appreciated a lot of development and good things that has been considered in the policing sector, where we are anticipated to do a lot of reform to enable our security agents perform their duty more effectively, the money for the modernization is lacking. It has got a zero budget. In fact, Madam Speaker and the chair budget, it's good to note this, even the money to do the crowd management, you know, the tear gas, the protective gears, is zero in this budget. I will kindly plead to the chair, when we go to the appropriation or even actually the supply, in this house, we look for some money to enable our police officers get the tear gas, the protective gears, to manage, of course, the crowd for crowd management. And kindly, yes, and cybersecurity, so as well said by my very able chair, ICT. And I don't want to preempt, but I know the chair budget is very concerned, equally concerned about this component, this program that was not really considered. Also, and I kindly, Chair ICT, I want also the chair to listen to this. Madam Speaker, we had a program, a very good program, Madam Speaker, on restocking program, especially among the pastoralist community, those affected by the cattle rustling, which initially we had about 1 billion or so, I think 2 or so, which has been removed. I will kindly call this House, and of course the chair budget and his committee, to look around when we get to that stage, whether we can get some small money to enable the pastoralist community restock there, because that is their source of livelihood, Madam Speaker. So, Chair, kindly, and I don't want to preempt, but we have got the issue of equalization is not bad. If Chair, kindly, I want Chair to listen to this. The issue of restocking is very important to pastoralist communities. And I can see even my colleague, Peter Locha, is agreeing with this. The farmers, the pastoralists lost a lot of head of cattle during the drought. Even others did through this issue of cattle rustling. I will beseech and call upon the chair budget and this House to look around where they can get some 2 billion or so that we can be able to have money to take back to the restocking program. And having said this, we can, Madam Speaker, this House is a budget-making House. And I'm sure we can still be able to get some money to put some money into that program. Having said this, I want to support this, and I'm really very happy and still commend all of us, chairs, who participated to make this possible. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, member for Wajir, Honorable Fatuma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to make my contribution on this budget, the supplementary estimate for the financial year 2024-25. But before I do my contribution, Madam Speaker, and I want to get your attention, Madam Speaker. Can I get your attention, Madam Speaker? I want to get your attention, Madam Speaker. Yes, I want your attention, Madam Speaker. I said before I do my contribution, I want to express my disappointment, to be honest. I came here very early in the morning, and my card was in the computer. And not just me. Some of the new members in this parliament have been wanting to speak from yesterday. But I don't understand what happens in this clerk office that we are not given a chance to say something. And for once, I want to talk to the leadership of this House. Mr. Ichungwa, if you can hear me, I'll be more than glad if you hear me, Mr. Ichungwa, that us, the members, the first-timers, we also want to speak. Mr. Ichungwa, I was saying, I want to talk to the leadership of this House. The new members of this House, they come here very early. They are not given a chance to say something. And I really don't understand what is going on in the clerk's office and the speaker. I say that because I was number 2 when I came here early in the morning. Let me just finish. I was number 2, and to date, we are just seeing people raising their hand, giving, to talk. Let us just know. If you don't want us to speak, let us know. Gen Zs have really shown us the way.
Honorable Fatuma.
Yes.
Order. Because you have come to the clerk's table, you have come to me, and there was a directive by the substantial speaker that every time, please take your seat, every time an order is called, the screen is clear. Because what we see every day is what you have seen me call for members by following each other, and they're not in the House. People put a card and disappear. People put a card on an issue, yet they don't want to speak to it. So we are implementing that every time a new order is called, and you can also not put a card in the morning to speak in the afternoon. you'll understand, and we have tried to explain to you. So I hope that is clear enough as guidance not only to you, but to the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well noted, but I was, again, the first person to enter this House this afternoon because I really wanted to be heard. And I still say I'm disappointed by the
You're on the
leadership
floor,
of the
Honorable
House.
Fatuma, please.
So having
be
said
heard.
that, Madam Speaker, I'll move to what I wanted, my contribution, Madam Speaker. First, I would like to thank the committee for agreeing with the Gen Zs for taking a budget cut. Indeed, I want to appreciate the Gen Zs for forcing not just the members of parliament, but Kenyans in large, for accepting to live within their means. And having said that, Madam Speaker, there are institutions that gained. I want to applaud the committee for looking at the doctors, the internship doctors, the JSS teachers, and the feeding programs so that our children can be fed. Madam Speaker, the elephant in the room, Madam Speaker, still we need to go further and cut our codes according to our size. There are ministries that are given monies that there's duplication of roles, Madam Speaker. If I may highlight a bit, the Office of the Deputy President, there is money that is given for alcohol and for alcohol use. We also have NACADA. Someone will ask, why will we give Office of the Deputy President such a huge money when we have NACADA who can also fight against drug abuse? And it's something food for thought. We need to discuss that so that we can also cut our budget and see, because we are talking of lean budget, those are areas we need to look at. Madam Speaker, I have heard my sister, Mudhoni, saying they were given 2 billion for the coffee. And that has actually made me think, for those of us who come from the northern part of this country, whether we will ever see a day we'll get 2 billion for the restocking of our livestock, or even those who fish, or those who do mira, and many others. So it's something for our budget chair to see so that even us, our livelihood can be improved. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want to discuss on the ministries that are still held at the national government, and they are given huge chunks of money. We need to be serious and devolve some of these functions. If you look at Health Committee is devolved, but still there is a lot of money that goes to the Health Department, Health Ministry in the national government, and many other ministries. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity for the CS that have been appointed today. I wish them all the best. And I want to applaud my party leader for accepting to dialogue with the government. At the end of the day, the country is bigger than us, and we need to work together. But I want to urge them to remember women. Women are very important in this role. So far, we have not seen any lady appointed from our side. Hopefully, we'll still get. I hear there are some positions which are pending. And we'll see whether the likes of Millie and Rosa and Esther Passaris will get a chance to serve, even myself, to serve in these ministries. So having said that, thank you. And hopefully for the members, the new members here, we have been shown the way, the Gen Z's way. Let us fight for our rights. Let us fight for us to speak here. We will not allow members who have come here thrice or 4 times to be repeating, and we sit here waiting for us days and days to just say one word. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Fatuma. Just to correct you, no CS has been appointed, just nominated. It is this House to take them through the vetting and finally the appointment by the President. I'll give this chance to the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute on this consideration of the first supplementary estimates for the year 24-25. Maybe, Honorable Speaker, just to exonerate myself, you know everything we say here is on record. And the Honorable Fatuma was referring to me when she was complaining about new members speaking. And maybe by now she should have known that it is the speakers that, or the persons sitting on the speaker's chair who decide who speaks, not the leader of minority, not the leader of majority. I also wait, like I have patiently waited to get this opportunity to contribute. But Honorable Speaker, let me say this first supplementary budget within the first month of the financial year is a very unique supplementary budget. Indeed, it is the second such budget, supplementary budget that I've seen since I joined this House over 10 years ago. The first being in 2018, which was also occasioned by changes of the Finance Act of 2018-2019. And those like Millie Odhiambo, who are here, we remember when we declined to approve the VAT on fuel. That occasioned certain changes to the appropriations bill, occasioning the first such supplementary, although that happened within the second to third month. This is the first time indeed in the history of Parliament that we are seeing a supplementary budget even before we begin implementing the budget. And it must not be lost on Kenyans that this was occasioned by the rejection of the Finance Act of 2024-2025. That rejection of the Finance Act occasioned a huge gap in our budget for this financial year, Honorable Speaker, and that is what has necessitated this supplementary budget this early in the financial year. The rejection of the finance bill occasioned a deficit of an additional 346 billion. And that tells you, Honorable Speaker, without this first supplementary budget, it would therefore mean that the government of Kenya goes out to borrow the entire 346 billion. Members will note that this supplementary budget is only reducing our budget by a total of about 146.3 billion. There is therefore another gap or a fiscal deficit of an additional 200 billion, part of which, Honorable Speaker, would be covered through additional revenue-raising measures and other austerity measures that will be carried on in the course of the financial year. Honorable Speaker, it's important to say this so that Kenyans get to understand that every finance act or every finance bill that consequently becomes a finance act comes to finance government operations and the budgets that we have budgeted for the people of Kenya. And I've heard many members lament this and that budget has been cut. Yes, this and that budget will be cut. And indeed, I heard the member of Githunguri complain that the coffee cherry revolving fund has lost 1 billion shillings, but failed to inform coffee farmers that they have an additional 3 billion shillings, but they would have gotten an additional 4 billion shillings this financial year. But also, Honorable Speaker, as rightly as she said, and she was asking, I don't know whether sarcastically, that whether dairy farmers or milk farmers are more important than coffee farmers. All farmers in the Republic of Kenya are important farmers. And that is why even dairy farmers in Githunguri, dairy farmers in Kikuyu, dairy farmers in Karachuonyo, dairy farmers in Bungoma, in Kandui constituency, and those in Kuresoi, south and north, will benefit from milk coolers, because it is a key promise that this administration promised dairy farmers that we will ensure that there is substantive value addition in the milk value chain, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, as much as within the last budget that we had just approved, there wasn't money for milk coolers and for dryers for maize farmers, we have now made sure that there are resources that are being allocated to ensure that we also secure the post-harvest losses from our maize farmers. We secure our dairy products by having coolers around our country in dairies in almost all our wards, Honorable Speaker. And I know we don't have adequate resources, courtesy of the rejection of the finance bill, to be able to roll out everything that ought to have been rolled out, Honorable Speaker. You have had many of, and this morning, Honorable Speaker, I had an engagement with the young people who keep sending us messages. A young girl called Jane, who told me she's a student at MKU, complaining that they have no access to university funding, Honorable Speaker. But I want to assure Jane and many other university students that the Committee on Budget has made sure that under the differentiated unit cost and also resources that have gone to the Higher Education Loans Board, no child, no student in university, no child or student in our TVET institutions will lack to access higher education on account of either capitation through DUC or either getting loans and sponsorship or scholarships through the Higher Education Loans Board. And these are some of the balances, Honorable Speaker, that we have had to do. That means, Honorable Speaker, that there will be a give and take within the supplementary budget, and that's why you see there are many other areas that we have cut expenditure, part of which might have been critical expenditure, but which can wait. And budget is all about prioritizing, Honorable Speaker, and we must be able to prioritize so that we ensure that even those who crusaded for the rejection of the finance bill are not going to suffer, Honorable Speaker, because they have opportunities that they will never be able to access. A child who does not access university education today cannot wait for next year or the year after. But probably a road in Kikuyu constituency that was to be constructed this financial year can wait. I therefore want to take this opportunity to ask Kenyans and to plead with Kenyans to be patient, because under these difficult economic times, under these times where we give and take, you cannot and we cannot have our cake and eat it at the same time. If we have no finances from the finance bill, then a road here and there will give way. A dam here and there will give way. Another project to do a hospital somewhere will give way. But, Honorable Speaker, that will come with the necessary and requisite responsible stewardship of the national treasury. And I want to believe, even with the nominees that have been named today, the Honorable John Buddy, God willing, if he ends up being in the national treasury, he has the requisite knowledge, and he has sat in this house. He knows. He has been a member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee when I chaired that committee. Honorable Speaker, I am confident that we'll be able to roll out this budget, be able to chew gum and scale the stairs at the same time, be able to cut on expenditure, unnecessary expenditure, and also be able to roll out critical development and other social programs in education, Honorable Speaker, even capitation to our day and boarding secondary schools, and also our JSS teachers, the JSS capitation, Honorable Speaker. All these things must run concurrently, even as difficult as things are under the rejected finance bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are certain things, Honorable Speaker, that were in the Finance Act or the Finance Bill, it never became an act, that would have helped this country also realize very many other developmental objectives. And for instance, Honorable Speaker, was the waiver or the exemption on penalties, on tax amnesty, or rather the tax amnesty provision that was there in the Finance Bill. Honorable Speaker, I am hoping that with time, the Finance Committee will make consideration to see how we can rescue some of these very positive things that were demonized within the Finance Bill that would have done very well for this economy, Honorable Speaker. That waiver, or the tax amnesty waiver, Honorable Speaker, easily generates close to between 30 to 40 billion shillings, and at the same time allows business people in this country an opportunity to save from penalties that have been penalized by KRA on account especially of bills they have not paid, because government is also holding their money under the pending bills, Honorable Speaker. And I want to pray and hope that the Finance Committee and indeed the National Treasury are working on two ways that they can rescue some of these good things, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you listen to people speak about the creation of jobs, we say the bottom-up economic transformation agenda is anchored on job creation, Honorable Speaker. We tried, Honorable Speaker, during the finance bill debate to speak to Kenyans, and in some of the measures that were in the finance bill spoke to job creation. But unfortunately, under the circumstances, it was difficult to get that message across to Kenyans. When we spoke about the manufacture of diapers, manufacture of sanitary towels, Honorable Speaker, we were simply trying to safeguard local manufacturing to ensure that our industries are thriving to create jobs locally, to ensure that those industries are generating revenues in this economy, not exporting jobs to other countries in the Far East, not exporting our forex to countries in the Far East as we import. And I'm glad I heard this afternoon the President speak to it, that it is time we had a conversation as Kenyans as to whether we want to make our economy one large supermarket to merchandise products manufactured and creating jobs in other economies outside of our economy, or whether we want to make our country a manufacturing hub where we'll be able to manufacture sanitary towels, diapers, and all those other things, Honorable Speaker. I've had members contribute to the issue of farmers. And that's what I was asking about, whether milk farmers are more important. Those who are claiming milk farmers seems to be getting preferential treatment versus coffee farmers. That, Honorable Speaker, within the finance bill, we had provisions that sought to protect poultry farmers. Many of our peasant farmers are in poultry rearing. Others are growing potatoes, Honorable Speaker. Others are growing onions. We sought to protect the onion farmer. We sought to protect the potato farmer, the poultry farmer from cheap imports of eggs, of potatoes. What reason is there, Honorable Speaker, for us to be growing onions in Loitoktok or in Kieni, in Nyeri County, and allow the importation of cheaper onions from Tanzania at the expense of the farmer in Kieni? Why would a farmer in Mochongoi, in Baringo County, or in Kinangop in Nyandarua be growing potatoes, yet my famous KFC and other cheap joints in town are importing potatoes from as far as Mexico and Netherlands? We must protect our local farmers, Honorable Speaker. And these are some of the measures that I'm saying we will need time to now soberly look at all these things and know how else can we finance the deficit that we have. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, the revenue estimates that are contained in the budget that we approved, and even in this supplementary budget, are usually very optimistic. If you look at where our country is today, we have been told we are losing not less than 6 billion shillings. Every day we are out in the streets stopping other people from going to work. The import of that, Honorable Speaker, is that we may not realize the revenue projections that we have projected in this supplementary budget. The consequence of that will be additional borrowing. That borrowing will have ramification on our cost of borrowing locally in the domestic market, because we have to borrow from the domestic market. It will have an implication on how much business people, or the rate at which business people can borrow, how much investments they can invest in, how many jobs they can be able to create for young Kenyans. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I just want to speak to Kenyans and ask them, let us reason together. Let us act in a manner that we will not destroy our economy as we seek to fix that which we seek to fix in our country. It is possible, as I said, to chew gum and scale the stairs, Honorable Speaker, together. And I believe together, we as a country can be able to do that. We can be able to fix the economic mess that we are in. We can be able to fix our politics without fighting, without injuring each other. We can be able to grow this economy and get it to where it ought to be. And Honorable Speaker, let me conclude by saying this first supplementary budget, as I said, is unprecedented. But I want to believe in the next few months, inevitably, we will get into a second. And this year, I foresee even a third supplementary budget, and ask the National Treasury that as they begin implementing this budget, Honorable Speaker, and as the new government ministries and state departments take shape, they will need to further review these budgets further to be able to align them with the new governance system that will be there, and to ensure that there are further cuts, so that if the projected revenues that we project are not realized, then we do not need to go out and borrow much more. Because even that space to borrow more money, we are almost hitting the ceiling that we set in this House, Honorable Speaker, and therefore it will not be feasible to continue borrowing. Honorable Speaker.
Time is up. Member for Chepalungu, Honorable Victor Koech.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I equally want to appreciate the opportunity you've given me. So I also heard my voice on the ongoing debate on the report by the Budget and Appropriation Committee, led by Honorable Ndini Nyoro. I want to laud them and to congratulate them for the good work they are doing. The President, while refusing to assent to the finance bill, clearly said in his speech that austerity measures are going to follow. Truly, from this report, the Budget and Appropriation Committee has given us a report, and in this report, the Office of the Presidency, together with the Office of the Deputy President, has faced a huge budget cut to a tune of 4.2 billion shillings. This is a clear indication that what the President says is what is being done and what is being undertaken by our committees. Madam Speaker, we were so sad that JSS, our teachers who have been serving us as a country through or under internship, were going to continue serving us under internship. But the Budget and Appropriation Committee saw it well and gave us a solution. And now our teachers are a happy lot, and it is a clear indication that in a few months' time, their confirmation is going to come through. And equally, Madam Speaker, coming from a constituency that greatly relies on dairy farming, I am happy as a member because money for milk coolers is still available through this budget. And it is a clear indication that mopping up of milk is going to happen. It is going to benefit my farmers from my constituency and from the dairy farmers within the country. Further gains, Madam Speaker, on the same is the issue of internship. Availing money through this budget to recruit more interns is a clear indication that this country is moving toward the right direction, ensuring that the graduates who graduate from various institutions are going to be engaged somewhere as they gain experience or as we prepare them for future markets. But sadly so, Madam Speaker, it is important to note that whenever we have a budget, we equally have a finance bill which translates to a finance act which funds this particular budget. We were not able, because we lost the finance bill, to actually put into budget the money for last mile. This money was going to greatly help the constituencies, and especially the constituency that I represent, that is Chepalungu constituency. It is important to note that sadly, we lost 14.5 billion, of which each constituency was going to get 50 billion. It is now upon the Budget and Appropriation Committee, led by Honorable Ndini Nyoro, together with us, members of this House, to look into the ways that we can bring back this particular amount of money in September, so as to ensure that we increase or we enhance electricity connectivity within our constituency. They say, Madam Speaker, if you want to remain in power, you have to give people power. And if we fail to give people power, we'll be answerable to the people that gave us these particular seats when it comes to 2027. It is important as a House that we sit down, look into the ways of how we can bring back this 14.5 billion that was going to help not only my constituency, but all the constituencies in the entire country. Madam Speaker, it is sadly also to note that we lost 10 billion that was going to enhance CDF. We all know the amount of work, the magnitude of the work that is being undertaken by CDF. We are losing 10 billion that was going to increase money to our constituencies by a margin of around 30 million by constituency. This means for constituencies that have been left behind for so long, like Chepaluko constituency, that is still facing a lot of dilapidation of infrastructure. Madam Speaker, this money would have greatly impacted on the infrastructure within the constituency that I represent, and equally to the entire country. It is now upon us, upon this Honorable House, upon the Chair, upon the committee, the Budget and Appropriation Committee, to look into the ways of bringing back this particular money so as to improve on the infrastructure of education, to improve on bursaries. In the rural constituencies that we represent, Madam Speaker, most of the people that go to school rely heavily on bursaries, and we don't enhance it, it means that we are not coping with the increase in population. Madam Speaker, on the roads, just like any other department, just like any other saga, roads have actually faced a major cut. Entirely, as a budget, we are losing over 100 billion. Roads is a major critical infrastructure that is going to spur economic growth within our constituencies. The finance bill that was drawn out that didn't work was seeking to find and allocate money and appropriate money that was going to handle roads that have been orphaned for so long. In our constituency, cutting across 3 constituencies, that is Daraja Sita, Chebole, going to Chebunya and Emuru Adigiri, we have a road that was done that was low volume, that requires maintenance. This money is not available simply because we didn't find money. We didn't pass, we actually passed, but it wasn't ascended, the finance bill. It is now upon this House, upon the Budget and Appropriation Committee to sit back together with the chair for roads and find ways. We need to find ways of handling these particular roads. There are major connectors, but sadly, Madam Speaker, they have remained unpassable for so many years. We've been promising, but the promise is not coming. It is now upon this House that we sit down, analyze our budget well, find ways and possible solutions of allocating money to these particular orphan roads. Because if they remain unmaintained for this long, we will lose the purpose for which they were constructed for. And Madam Speaker, having said so, equally, the 3 things that we are elected to serve our people majorly is on water, electricity, and roads. On water, if we are continue to underfund the water sector, then it means, Madam Speaker, our people will not access clean drinking and even domestic water. If it so exists so, Madam Speaker, we as a country are not leading in the right direction. And even as we lament and talk about this budget, it is not appropriate that we sit back and say we're not going to make further adjustment and allocate more money into water sector. It is now upon us, upon the chair, that we should allocate money to water. We should deliberately allocate more money to energy, to roads, and to education. Sadly, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education, or the Department of Education, lost money for infrastructure. This money for infrastructure normally comes in to add up to what CDF does. In a constituency that I represent, that so many schools are still in a sorry situation, Madam Speaker, this money normally comes up to add up to what I do as a member of parliament. Kneeling, or actually saying that this money is no longer available, is destroying a constituency that was going to develop further. It is now upon the chair, and I implore upon you, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, to find ways. The infrastructural money was critical to rural constituencies. We implore upon you, together with your committee, we will help you as a house to find ways of bringing back the infrastructural money. With so, a few remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to say I support the appropriation bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Nairobi, Honorable Passaris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak to this historic supplementary budget. But before I go to the budget, I want to say that yesterday was a very sad day for my county. From the daytime when there was demonstrations, we saw the residential areas of Pipeline, and through the night, the residential areas of Zimmerman in Roysambu being tear-gassed, houses and apartments. It's a highly congested area, high populace. I spoke to the member for Roysambu this morning, Honorable Mwafrika, and he was equally disturbed by what was going on. I spoke to the acting IG, Douglas Kanja, and the Nairobi RPC, Bungei. And, Bungei said to me that, look, Esther, it becomes very difficult when you're having people trying to go to a protected area, and they're all roads leading to that protected area where there's also refineries which could cause more damage if somebody tried to tamper with them. So, it's a thin line. And it takes me back to what's going on in the Middle East, where we see the casualties of women and children because of a war that shouldn't really be there. And I really want to appeal to the Gen Zs. You have done a historic thing in this country. You are our children. I have 2 Gen Zs in my family, and almost every member of parliament here has Gen Zs in their households. And we listen to them and we hear them, and we understand where they're coming from. And they came out to the streets because the first thing they wanted was the finance bill to be withdrawn. And it was withdrawn. And then they wanted the president to go on X, and the president went on X. And then they wanted the cabinet to be dismissed, and the president dismissed the cabinet. And now there's a hue and cry about why do we bring back the same people? At one point I actually asked the Gen Zs, can you put your list together of possible people that you think could be able to come in and help with the leadership? There was no such list coming out. And at the end of the day, this is a constitutionally elected government. People went and voted. And they voted for the representatives that are in the House. Every 5 years, we have that opportunity to vote. You don't want to wait for 5 years, but you cannot disrupt the entire country. We've seen enough bloodshed. I hear Gen Z saying, oh, we are not responsible for the bloodshed, it's the police. But we saw the infiltration of the Gen Z movement by criminal elements, by goons. And even in Roysambu yesterday, the people that actually came to Roysambu yesterday were actually people that were not from that county. The county was peaceful during the day, and they rained terror at night. So the thing is, as a country, we have to always look for peace. We have seen enough bloodshed. And right now, the government has formed a broad-based parliament, and I really believe that together we can actually be able to steer this country in the right direction. There were so many things in the manifesto of Azimio that could actually complement the government. And I know that Baba has the heart of all the Gen Zs, because for the existence of the ODM party has been 19.5 years, which is the Gen Zs. We have Gen Zs that are 12 years old up to 26 years old. The 12-year-olds are in school. We can't disrupt their education every day. We also have a lot of people who are unemployed. The unemployed and those who are employed are now also having challenges. We've had cancellations, we've had job cuts, and we need to actually put this country in the right direction. Everything that the Gen Zs have spoken about for stop the abductions, let's have arrests of the police that have done wrong. I have seen the president speak to all that today. We have had budget cuts. We removed the things that were unconstitutional from the budget. And I believe that, it's going to be hard for Kenya right now. But the employment opportunities for the doctors, for the JSS teachers, are going to be there. And we hope that the economy can be spurred up in terms of giving incentives to the private sector so that we can create more job opportunities, because our neighbors have actually benefited from the strife that we have in our country. Continue guiding. And today I was thinking, we used to have NEPA desks in every ministry. Can we have a Gen Z desk in every ministry, in every public office? We have retirements every year. Austerity measures might not open out jobs for us. But if we can at least employ some Gen Zs in every ministries and have them run in the Gen Z's desk, they can make sure that they're the eyes and the ears for the president. Because structures of government sometimes are actually so bent on doing things wrong that we need the elements of the Gen Zs within there. In the counties can really help. If the counties were able to actually raise their revenue by reducing the amounts that they've been charging, they will be in a position then to be able to get more revenue, and as a result, actually lessen the burden on the people and be able to actually deliver more services. All round, we know that the Gen Zs are asking for more governance, they are asking for more accountability, they are asking for more action when it comes to corruption, they are asking for an end to opulence, they are asking for questions about how people became as rich as they are in such a short period. For me, I've been driving the same car I've been driving for the last 13 years. Sometimes I also question, how do people who come into parliament already have helicopters? We have questions that need to be answered, and I really pray that the president will deal with it decisively. We also see a hand of political meddling. An early politician, past and present, who's actually fueling the instability of this country, they need to be questioned and arrested. Any police that actually went beyond his mandate and did the wrong thing needs to be also arrested. There is a lot of healing to be done. The mothers who've lost their children are in pain. I have seen children saying how much they hate the government, how much they hate the parliamentarians, how much they hate everything. But you know what? We need to turn that hate into constructive ways of running this country. This country belongs to all of us. From independence, when the Mau Mau freedom fighters fought for this country, to today, there has been struggle after struggle. I myself in 2017, actually dealt with 97 bodies in this county. I actually was on the street, tear-gassed over and over again till I could do it no more. It took me years of post-traumatic stress disorder to be able to deal with the smell of tear gas. I also want to say that we're going to be asking questions that the Gen Zs wants answers. What is that pink substance that is being taken through the water bowsers? Is that used in other countries? Is it ISO certified? Is it safe? Are we creating a health hazard coming in the future? There are questions that need to be answered, and we as your members of parliament will ask them. When it comes to the budget, I think there are some things that we have to do. As we tighten our budget, as we deal with corruption, we need to also ask ourselves, can we increase capitation? Can we make sure we pay for capitation? Can we make sure secondary education is free? Can we scrap all these bursaries in all these various entities, from the NGCDF to GAF to MCS to governors? Can we scrap it all and make sure that we have 100% transition? Can we make sure that the schools that have more students, we actually allocate money to classrooms? I think it is sad to see young teenage children who finish primary still at home because they can't pay. There are going to be some decisions that we're going to make as we move along. And I believe that we all have the best interest of the country at heart. I think we need to end the insults, we need to end the hate, we need to come together, and I believe that there is a space for the Gen Zs in every public entity. Every year we have retirements. Let's fill those spaces with the Gen Zs. Let's have a special Gen Z desk in every public entity so that they can actually look at governance. They can look at structures. They should be allowed. Access to information is a law. They should be allowed through every office to make sure that they actually help steer this country. Their efforts and their fight should not be in vain. Those who died should not be in vain. I think it's about time that we consider Gen Zs as we look to replace those who've retired. The Gen Zs, I celebrate you, and I am sorry for all the pain we have caused you. And I really pray that we can work together for the goodness and the greatness of this nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Kwanza, Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi.
Well, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Having sat here from 2 o'clock, and as somebody mentioned, I don't know what happened, but that's for another day. I just want to echo, I think we have talked about this. My input in this particular supplementary budget is that, of course, we know why we are doing this. I've been here 3 times, Madam Speaker, and this is a very unique supplementary budget because we are doing it after, of course, before we have the budget itself. Therefore, I think we are just having the inputs, and I think the chairman and other people should actually take into consideration whatever contribution these members are putting. It's important that he takes note of it. One very important thing that I've noticed that we've had a lot of cuts. Now, we therefore should, as a guideline, let's complete the projects, the ongoing projects before, because we have no funds. Let's complete the ongoing projects before we start new ones because of the financial constraint. And of course, Madam Speaker, there's a lot of wastage in this country. Again, let's look at it departmental or whatever it is, ministry. There's a lot of wastage in some of the areas. And therefore, I think we should also look at it very critically and take that as a priority when allocated some little money that you're going to be allocated. And therefore, that is something that everybody should take into consideration because we do a lot of wastage here, and I think that should be looked at seriously. The only thing that I want to comment on this is that we have 7.5 billion on fertilizer subsidy. I come from River Valley, Trans Nzoia in particular, and we have to have this, the next season, we should have this money ready because, of course, apart from having a technical problem we had, we want in future, the next year, to have fertilizer ready. Madam Speaker, I'll be very surprised that fertilizer came and imagine there was no top dressing, very little top dressing. And so then, you know, what will that lead to? Poor harvest. And that leads to another problem, which of course means we may end up importing food in this country. It's a shame for a country like ours, which has all very good climatic conditions and the soils to import food. But just because we have not addressed that issue of fertilizer, and of course I can see 7.5 billion shillings, which is good enough, but let this come on time. And again, as it comes, some areas maize grow very fast. Let's also have the top dressing fertilizer on time. As I'm talking like this, I'm told those in Trans Nzoia and parts of River Valley, they did not get the top dressing. So we'll have a very poor harvest. Yeah? And that is because we did not do our job well. Otherwise, I think there's some allocation. Apart from that one, of course, there is this matter of coffee. Let's again work on it very, very seriously so that it can be able to export. Because coffee in this country is one of the best in the whole world. Let's again work on it. Whatever it is, how for the people that are in agriculture and those who are devoted to assist the farmers do something that can be able to have enough coffee harvest for us to be able to export. Secondly, of course, we have these mini coolers. I want to thank the committee for having put 2 billion shillings on importation of milk coolers. That is important. I think I took advantage of that. And I have, in my 6 wards, have at least a cooler in each ward. And this has actually helped. One, employment of the youths. Secondly, the milk that we get from here can be able to, and we have sent it to Kenya, to KCC and other factories. And I can tell you, we have a very good market in the Middle East, particularly Middle East. I have been Middle East many times. Those days when we were doing very well in terms of milk production, we had milk from Kenya. Today, you go to Middle East, and you'll be surprised that you get the milk from Uganda, and you wonder what happened to us. So that again is an issue that I think the committee, I want to thank you for having put 2 billion shillings for importation of the milk, and I think that milk coolers, I think from Poland, whatever it is, must be Poland. I think that is again something that we should be able to do, and do it well so that can be able to have market, particularly the Middle East. And of course, we're also trying to do zero grazing. That again will be able to go with the zero grazing. Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, that is something that will be able to provide employment. I think in 4 of the milk coolers have almost got almost 80 youths actually working in those milk coolers. So I want to request that the committee look at these wastages and at least let's adapt on that. Again, I think we can also negotiate the debt, the public debts, because we are asking at least to increase the funding on projects that actually can bring development in this country. And therefore, we can also ask the Minister of Finance to be able to renegotiate on the public debts so that it can be able to increase the funding to some of the projects that actually can create employment and, of course, increase development in our country. I think, Madam Speaker, I support this bill, the supplementary bill, but I think it's a very unique. We hope and pray that we'll be able to, God willing, we'll be able to go through. And when you get the bill itself, the financial bill, we'll be able to look at some of the issues that we have put forward to amend. So that it's also not rejected. I think some of us are even here because, we voted yes. And that has caused a lot of anxiety to some of the people. Myself, Madam Speaker, I tell you, the youth invaded my home. So
It's out of order, Honorable Member.
No, I don't want to get involved. Madam
This
Speaker,
is not it's not your take, Honorable
I support.
Ferdinand. What is out of order, Honorable Funyula?
What is he ordering?
What is out of order? You have your mic.
Yes. Chair.
Take your seat, member for Kwanza.
Chair, I just want to send my sincere condolences, or my sincerely want to sincerely sympathize with my colleague who happens to be my brother-in-law for the loss you almost suffered for refusing to listen to electorates. I think you have learned your lesson.
What is out of order, member for
and you
Funyula?
live to work
What
properly.
is out
Thank
of
you,
order?
Honorable Speaker.
Member for Funyula, you're totally out of order.
I think it's out of order.
It is a democratic right for any member to vote anyway. Member for Kwanza, conclude.
I just want to say I think I support this supplementary bill, and I just hope and pray that be able to implement. I talked when you are away, but I think I'll be able to discuss with you some of my suggestions. I support this supplementary bill. Thank you.
Honorable members, I know I've gotten a lot of interest on this motion and some questions because in the morning the debate had been limited to 5 minutes, but because we did not limit it on this sitting, to 5 minutes. You cannot do that mid-debate, but honorable members, 10 minutes is a maximum. If you all speak and limit it, many of you will speak. And just to also note, today we are sitting all the way to 9 p.m. There is enough time for members to contribute. This chance will go to the member for Nandi, Honorable Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this motion. And from the onset, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I support this supplementary budget estimate, supplementary budget 1 of 2024-2025. Honorable Speaker, of course, when the budget came to our supplementary budget came to our attention, I was a bit disturbed, Honorable Chair, and I am a member of a Committee on Health. And Honorable Speaker, looking at the cuts that the health facilities were taking, right from Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, Honorable Speaker, that was supposed to benefit from 100 million for a construction of a children's hospital to supplement the Shoe for Africa, Honorable Speaker. You know MTRH serves a very good number of counties, Honorable Speaker. Of course, my heart sank. Same to the ICU facility that was supposed to go there. Honorable Speaker, I was disturbed by the fact that KEMRI, which is the strongest and the greatest facility in matters advancing on the issues of medicine, Honorable Speaker, received a total cut of 400 million that was supposed to be meant for research and such kind of things, Honorable Speaker. Of course, Honorable Speaker, this makes my heart sink to see that Madari Hospital, that is handling the mental ill health issues, Honorable Speaker, in this country, received a cut, 100% cut, Honorable Speaker. And this is one of the facilities that we run to when we have issues of mental health, Honorable Speaker, or rather mental ill health, Honorable Speaker. Of course, it pained me, Honorable Speaker, to also see the national spinal injury, which is only one facility in the whole country, Honorable Speaker, that serves anyone who suffers from a spinal injury, Honorable Speaker. That facility is in dire need of funds for it to be upgraded and for it to be expanded so it can be able to accommodate and treat more people, Honorable Speaker. But this particular facility, Honorable Speaker, received 100% cut, Honorable Speaker, which is actually taking us back in matters development of health, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when you look at Kenyatta University Referral Hospital that was supposed to benefit from the cancer center that's supposed to help us reduce the number of people that are actually going overseas for treatment, Honorable Speaker, receiving a cut, a humongous cut, Honorable Speaker, it actually broke my heart. But Honorable Speaker, looking at the gains or the winners of this particular supplementary budget, it speaks and it looks, it portrays a very good picture, Honorable Speaker, of this government that is paying attention to issues that are very primary and that are really important to this country. Honorable Speaker, when you look at education, it has been able to get a lot of money in terms of the recruitment of the 20,000 JSS teachers, Honorable Speaker, as opposed to the narrative that we were all setting into, Honorable Speaker, that since we did not have the finance bill go forward, therefore we cannot be able to generate money to run this government, then this will be the first casualties. Honorable Speaker, I am happy that we have a responsible government, a government that sits down and weighs what is more important and what is urgent, Honorable Speaker, and that is why we have the 46,000 JSS teachers confirmed and the 20,000 that are going to be hired as interns, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the young men and women of this country will not be going without money under the HELB. They will be able to access their money properly, Honorable Speaker. We also have the issue of the school feeding program. Honorable Speaker, I have my own reservations in regards to how the feeding program, Honorable Speaker, is actually implemented and the beneficiaries. But that notwithstanding, Honorable Speaker, I would be very selfish to actually say no to it when someone is going to benefit. So, Honorable Speaker, while we work on the structures to ensure that implementation is not only fair but also targeted, Honorable Speaker, I support and I am really happy that it was part of the persons gaining. Honorable Speaker, in health, we are going to have the universal health care. It has been a great beneficiary. We are going to have them get 8 billion. Honorable Speaker, the primary health care, the emergency and chronic diseases is also getting an allocation, Honorable Speaker. Importantly, Honorable Speaker, if you look at livestock and cooperatives, where the milk farmers, the dairy farmers are falling into, Honorable Speaker, as much as the budget cannot be able to accord the 2 billion that we really wanted for us to be able to bring up the prices of milk for our farmers, I am happy that at least we have 1.5 billion, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be able to take care of our milk farmers and be able to save them from from the treatment that they are getting currently, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I cannot overemphasize, Honorable Speaker, the cherry fund that is being given to coffee farmers. Nandi County, Honorable Speaker, as you have noted, is the greatest and the newest entrant to coffee farming, and we hope to be able to benefit, Honorable Speaker, from this, including the sugar reforms, Honorable Speaker. I am one happy representative to see that this budget or this supplementary budget has maintained or retained the 1 billion that is supposed to be, that is meant for sugar reforms, Honorable Speaker, and of course not to mention the fertilizer subsidy. I am one happy person, I am one happy farmer, and one happy representative, Honorable Speaker, because our people will continue to produce their farm produce, Honorable Speaker, and feed this country. Honorable Speaker, I am especially happy because of the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Honorable Speaker, like it has been put across by several members in this House, is that the CDF and the NGAF are very important funds that touch the people on the ground. I am happy, Honorable Speaker, that this government has seen the importance of those two funds, and therefore, if a budget cut has been inflicted on any of them, it is minimal, Honorable Speaker, but for NGAF, we want to appreciate that actually we are receiving the money that's supposed to help us do affirmative action in our counties. Honorable Speaker, looking at these two sides, Honorable Speaker, allow me to say that this is a sincere budget rationalization, a sincere one, Honorable Speaker, considering what was taken away and what actually gained from those that had something taken away from them. Honorable Speaker, that notwithstanding, I must mention, Honorable Speaker, that we have issues that we must be able to deal with, Honorable Speaker. We must deal with wastage, Honorable Speaker, and we must be able to deliberately shed the fat of public resource wastage, Honorable Speaker. This one must be done for us to be able to ensure that the services that we want to get to our people actually get to them and on time, for that matter, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is also an elephant in the room that is called disbursement. Honorable Speaker, I have been in a legislative house. This is my 7th year, Honorable Speaker. And one single thing I have not been able to crack is something called disbursement. Honorable Speaker, it beats me that we can do a budget, allocate a certain amount of money, confirm using a finance bill, whether a current one or a previous one, that we can be able to get this money and we can be able to fund this budget. And at the end of the financial year, Madam Speaker, we actually get non-disbursements. We don't get that money given to the line ministry that was intended for, Honorable Speaker. It beats me, Honorable Speaker, and I think this is one thing as a parliament we must speak to, so that we ensure that at the end of every financial year, every single coin that was allocated to whatever purpose actually serves the purpose at that point in time, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we also have the elephant that is called non-expenditure, Honorable Speaker, or underutilization, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is sheer incompetence for you to be given money, a specific amount of money, and at the end of the financial year, Honorable Speaker, amidst all the needs that we have in this country, all the issues that need to be sorted, you return the money at the end of financial year, courtesy of lack of utilization or underutilization. That is something, Honorable Speaker, as a parliament, if we intend to ensure that the people of Kenya get services, we must deal with it, and this is not only the time, but also the opportunity to be able to deal with it, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be able to sort out these issues and get services to our people, Honorable Speaker. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, you know, I remember in the year 2022, when the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, came into office, he made a very unpopular decision. A decision to put to an end subsidies, Honorable Speaker. And when that happened, Honorable Speaker, it was very unpopular, but we have a very good result from it, Honorable Speaker, that it was able to stabilize our economic situation in this country, and we were able to see...
Order, Member for Nandi. Honorable Catherine, what's out of order?
I just wanted my colleague and a very good friend of mine, Honorable Cynthia Muge, to notice that when school feeding program for nomadic places...
What is out of order, Honorable Catherine?
She said that it's not working, but it is working. I want to prove to her.
Honorable Catherine, that is point of information. And if I had Honorable Member for Nandi, she said she may not agree with how it is done, but she supports. And she did not say it's not working. So that is not a point of order. Is there anything out of order, Honorable Catherine?
I want just to mention something so that she can be happy, a little happy, even if she's not agreeing.
She looks pretty happy to me.
She was not agreeing. I want her to agree. Actually, NACONEC is a council that is working better before.
Honorable Catherine, that is a point of information. It's a
Yes.
point of debate. You'll be free to put it in your debate. Honorable Member for Nandi, kindly conclude.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. And of course, you know, issues of food is in the heart of every woman and mother, so that I understand, Honorable Speaker. And just lastly, Honorable Speaker, I must say that the finance bill has brought us here. And we have all realized that it cuts to the front and to the back. That those who are there and those who are not there are suffering the same consequences, Honorable Speaker. But it is also good that we are here so that we can be able to live within our means and ensure that whatever we have, we make it count while it lasts, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this particular motion.
Honorable Joseph Oyula, Member for Butula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute to this important motion. Honorable Speaker, I want to start by congratulating the Budget Committee for work well done. The Budget Committee went through a lot of small areas to ensure that the budget is almost properly brought out. However, Madam Speaker, my concern is mainly on the huge reduction on the capital expenditure against the reduction on the recurrent expenditure. Madam Speaker, development expenditure is the one that should have been given less reduction because it spurs development in the country. It's the area that the youths can get employment. It's the area that the production of a country can be assessed and be determined. Madam Speaker, I would suggest that as the Budget Committee continues with their work, they should put more effort in reducing recurrent expenditure and enhancing the capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is very important for development of the country. Other than that, Madam Speaker, I'm happy that a lot of areas have been properly taken care of. Like in agriculture, we have those coolers which are very useful in some of our areas. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is the consideration for the JSS teachers. There have been a problem in the constituencies, but I think with this provision that has been put in the budget, many of them will be accommodated in the system. Madam Speaker, TVETs, construction of hostels has also been considered. And that is very important because most TVETs do not have hostels. And therefore, you find the students moving around looking for accommodation. I'm sure if this is done and done well, our students will have proper accommodation and will concentrate on their studies. Madam Speaker, I also want to mention the increase in the energy for purchase of transformers. Some of our areas, particularly the area I come from, we do not have adequate power in the county. So these transformers will help those dark areas that we still see in our areas. Madam Speaker, this is a very important budget, even though it came at a bad time because of the rejection of the finance bill, but still we need to take care that the reduction in some of these areas do not contribute to pending bills. Because if we increase pending bills, we'll be increasing our borrowing, and that will affect our deficit. So these reductions should be looked at again so that we have adequate funding in some of the projects that were ongoing so that we don't create pending bills which are going to increase our deficit. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I wish to support this supplementary budget. Thank you.
Honorable Jackson Kosgei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the onset, I support this motion on the consideration of the first supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-2025, and I appreciate the chair and the committee for bringing in